Welcome to today's Explainer. Putting on my therapist hat for a second, I want to share a clinical case study with you today that, well, it honestly serves as a massive warning sign for struggling couples. We're going to unpack the data from our source material to really understand a profoundly important relationship dynamic, and it's one that plays out in millions of homes every single day. We're looking at the quiet, almost invisible death of two marriages. So as we go through this, I really want you to look at the patterns we're exploring and ask yourself, honestly, do any of these symptoms feel a little too close to home?
All right, let's just dive right in. If you want to protect your relationship, you absolutely need to guard against what I'm about to share. Consider this incredible insight from our source material. Most emotional affairs, they don't actually begin with physical attraction. No way! Society trains us to picture infidelity as this sudden, overwhelming spark of lust, right? Like some dramatic, cinematic romance. But the data tells a totally different story. Actually, most emotional affairs begin with people feeling just entirely invisible in their own homes. It starts with a void, an emptiness that just builds and builds over years of shared silence. It's not about the sudden presence of a shiny new temptation. It's entirely about the absence of fundamental connection right where it's supposed to live.
Section 1. The Invisible Spouses. Let's look at our subjects, Yuki and Hiroshi.
Now, what makes this case study so incredibly compelling to me is that our two subjects are sharing the exact same neighborhood. They're quietly failing right across the street from each other, completely unaware that they are mirroring each other's hidden emotional reality. Take Yuki, for example. Every single night, she sits across the dining table from her husband, Kenji. But Kenji isn't really there. He's totally emotionally unavailable, just constantly scrolling through his phone while they eat. And when they do actually speak, it's just about bills and schedules. Literally, their entire relationship has been reduced to a daily checklist. Meanwhile, right across the street, Hiroshi is experiencing the exact same isolation, just in a slightly different flavor. Hiroshi feels like an absolute ghost in his own house. When he walks into a room, his wife barely even looks up. Her attention is completely 100% focused on their daughter, which leaves Hiroshi feeling totally forgotten. So we have two different households, two different dynamics, but the exact same symptom: profound invisibility. This is a cautionary mirror I really want you to hold up to your own living room.
Section 2. A quiet marital death.
You see, neither of these couples suffered a massive dramatic betrayal at first. There were no crazy shouting matches in the front yard, no sudden shocking revelations. Instead, they experienced what the source aptly describes as a quiet marital death. Because, let's be real, relationships usually don't just explode, they slowly run out of oxygen. As a therapist, the clinical diagnosis I'd give this kind of prolonged neglect is emotional starvation. Think about it. Just as your physical body starts to shut down when it's deprived of nutrients, your psyche begins to break down when it's deprived of intimacy. Emotional starvation is this heavy state where a person feels entirely ignored, forgotten, and fundamentally deprived of connection in the absolute one place they're supposed to feel the most secure, their own home.
And our symptom checklist reveals that this starvation, it's actually driven by incredibly mundane things. It is rarely malicious. We're talking about relentless career pressures that just consume the day. Someone working late every single night and coming home utterly exhausted. We see routine completely replacing romance. The spontaneity is just gone, replaced entirely by predictability. And of course, conversations getting reduced to that daily checklist of chores. These are like slow drips of poison in a relationship. So I have to ask you, are you letting career pressures or just the sheer exhaustion of the day override the romance in your own home? Because it is incredibly dangerous to let the logistics of life completely overwrite the poetry of living together.
Section 3. The Unplanned Emotional Affair. Which brings us to the absolute crisis point of this explainer. What happens when two emotionally starved neighbors finally cross paths? Remember, neither Yuki nor Hiroshi woke up one morning with a grand plan to dismantle their lives. Not at all. They were just two people sleepwalking through their routines, completely hollowed out by their environments. But when two emotionally starved people finally cross paths, the escalation is dangerously rapid. When you're starving, even a cracker tastes like a 5-star meal, right? Step 1. Someone truly listens. For the first time in years, somebody actually puts down their phone, makes eye contact, and just listens to them speak. Step 2. Feelings are actually noticed. Someone validates that they exist, that they matter, that they aren't just a ghost. And because of those two simple, basic human interactions, Step 3 happens. An instant, dangerous connection forms. It's rapid fire because the void they were carrying was just so incredibly deep. This is a severe warning for any couple out there neglecting the basics of connection.
And it's just heartbreakingly ironic that these two individuals had to look outside their own homes to discover the exact intimacy that had vanished from their own bedrooms. They didn't have to travel across the globe to find what was missing. They literally just had to walk across the street. As you're listening to this, I really want to remind you that the capacity for intimacy in your own relationship, it's likely still there. It's right there in your home. But it might just be locked away behind thick walls of routine and exhaustion. So I urge you, look inward and break down those walls before you or your partner start looking outward.
Section 4. The need to be seen.
This case study leads us to a really crucial therapeutic realization about the true root of infidelity. When we analyze relationships through this lens, we stop looking at just the ultimate transgression and we start looking at the environment that incubated it in the first place. Basically, we have to diagnose the soil, not just the weed. As our source so brilliantly illustrates, and I quote, "Their emotional affair wasn't about lust, it was about finally feeling seen by another human being after years of being ignored at home." I want this to be a real breakthrough moment for couples listening today. The driving force here wasn't a physical craving, it was a profound, deeply unmet human psychological need. To be seen is to exist. When your partner stops seeing you, you slowly feel like you are ceasing to exist. And human beings? Well, we'll do almost anything, even highly destructive things, to prove to ourselves that we are still alive and still worthy of attention.
So, as we wrap up this analysis, I want to turn the lens back on you. I leave you with this final, vital thought for your own relationships, a question really any good therapist would ask you to take home and chew on. Are you truly paying attention to the person across your table before they start looking across the street? Please don't let your marriage die a quiet death. Put down the phone, look up from the daily checklist, and just make sure your partner knows they are seen. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly, highly encourage you to take these insights directly into your own life today.